So this is my final video on John chapter 2, John chapter 19 verse 2, in which we'll discuss the reconciling of the colors found in the different gospel accounts. So John chapter 19 verse 2 reads, and they twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head and arrayed him in a purple robe. And the word for purple here is porphorion. And then we see Mark's gospel, which agrees with it, and here it says, and clothed him with purple porphorion, and so it's also saying purple. However, the difference is Matthew's gospel says they put a scarlet kokinin robe on him. So this video is we're going to try to go through how this might be reconciled. So let's start off. John says the robe is purple, whereas Matthew's scarlet. Most think that that is the same garment is being referred to, whether it's whether it is purple or scarlet. They're thinking it's just the same thing, the same color. The Diatessaron, which is a 2nd century harmonization of the 4 Gospels by Tatian, who later apostatized, seems to speak of it as 2 separate garments, one scarlet and one purple, which is absurd, but regardless, it's interesting to note. And it says, and they stripped him and put on him a scarlet cloak, and they clothed him in garments of purple. Actually, there might be some nuance here, but it looks like he's still thinking about 2 separate things. Also, kind of interesting to note is that Midrash Rabbah, this Jewish work, commentary, not on, of course, Jesus, but on a similar matter, it says Rav Yeshua of Skikning said in the name of Rav Levi, it can be compared to a prince whose tutor wanted to go in before the king to plead on the behalf of his son, but was afraid of those who stood by, lest one of them should attack him. But what did the king do? He clothed him in a purple cloak, royal purple cloak, so that all who saw him might be afraid. Similarly, Aaron used to enter the Holy of Holies hourly on that day, and had not been for the many merits which entered with him and helped him in his petitions, he would have been unable to go in on account of the angels that were there. For this reason, God did give unto him garments after the pattern of holy garments, as it says, for Aaron's sons thou shalt make a tunic, and this is referring to Exodus 28 verse 40, just as it is written, he shall put on righteousness as a coat of mail, and a helmet of salvation upon his head, and go and put on garments of vengeance for clothing, and was clad with zeal as a cloak. So what it's saying here is the garment represents righteousness, merits righteousness and holiness. Then there's another mention in Genesis Rabbah, which may be worth going over. Maybe it's a waste of time, honestly. But anyway, it says, it can be compared to a king whose palace guard sneered at the purple cloak. The king retorted, so you have nothing to do except look at my purple cloak. Well, as long as you live, I will change it and punish you. Similarly, the wicked who attacked the Ancient of Days did not do so because he was old, but because they had wearied him with their actions, referring to the Israelites. For it says, you have wearied the Lord with your actions. God said to them, I will change my, referring to his cloak, as it were. Wherefore is thine apparel red, referring to Isaiah 63 verse 2. And I will punish you, as it says, the Lord will go forth as a mighty man. He will stir up jealousy like a man of war. Then we have Bed the Venerable, which discussing the purple cloak says a purple robe represents the purple robe which kings wear, as I quoted earlier with Aquinas, and this is actually still quoting Aquinas. Matthew says it was scarlet, but purple and scarlet are different names for the same color. The colors are not exactly the same as Saint Bed seems to say, though there is overlap, as we'll show below, since other scriptures do seem to distinguish these 2 colors. So let's start off with the book of Revelation, which seems to distinguish them. So Revelation 18 verse 6, Alas, alas, for the great city was clothed in fine linen, in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold, with jewels, and with pearls. So you see the words purple is porphyrion and scarlet is kokinon. It's the same words found in Matthew, Mark, and John. Also interesting, scarlet and purple are also the priestly colors in Exodus 28, a chapter that has reoccurring mentions in John 19's allusions, which may be, in fact, the chapter John is alluding to in Revelation 18, verse 6. So John 28, verse 5, we're going to go off the Septuagint because of obviously the New Testament's in Greek, and it largely does follow Septuagint. And it says, "And they shall take the gold and blue and the purple and the scarlet and the linen." So this is actually found in the Net's translation of the Septuagint. And of course the word for purple and scarlet are the same exact words. So this is actually the word Mark uses. But it could be there is some overlap between these colors, just as the Hebrew word commonly translated as red, eduma, can refer to red and brown, or a reddish brown, the color of blood. So with the word scarlet, kokinon, the word found in Liddell Scott's pretty much just says scarlet, as you can see here, scarlet clothes, scarlet, scarlet. It's also interesting though, while kokinon simply seems to refer to scarlet, which is pretty much a type of red, the word for purple, on the other hand, porphyrion, it reads this, so it mentions purple a lot. Obviously, human complexion, bright red, rosy, flushing. So, not purely purple. And then it mentions here more purple, then it mentions some shrub, and this is more down for purple. So mostly purple, but it does acknowledge it can refer to human complexion, which is not purple. Anyway, Middle Liddell states this, and he mentions this, it should say number 1. It says, after Homer, then it says porphyria, dark red, purple, or crimson. So it can refer to human complexion, which is not typically dark red. It could also refer to dark red, and it could also refer to the color crimson, which is, again, another shade of red. So porphyrion has a couple of shades of red within its semantic domain, just not just simply what we think of in modern English as purple. When looking at the overlap in meaning the color of the robe, if only one was used, was more probably more reddish than violet, at least in our modern English speech. This may be why there's not much said by the Greek fathers on this matter, because they probably understood there's some overlap. There is overlap in color. They probably understood this better than us, but because we're at the mercy of translations, it's harder for us to understand this. The colors had overlap, but was probably not perceived as being a contradiction. The colors are not thought of the same in every language. Colors are not thought of the same. For instance, we could say in Russian, they have two colors. They have different ideas of what blue is. Baby blue is not considered blue. Baby blue is its own color, and then darker blue is its own color. So in Russian, if you want to say baby blue, you say голубой, and then if you want to say dark blue, you say синий. So this is just how different cultures think of colors, just as I mentioned above with the word aduma, which typically is translated as red. It doesn't exactly correspond to red. You can actually go on to I think Wikipedia. There are some articles online showing how their ideas of colors are either broader, more narrow in different languages. So perhaps what John saw, maybe it was kind of purplish, or maybe he just deliberately or maybe how he perceived it was more purplish, and so he used the word purple, or perhaps he deliberately wanted to use a more ambiguous word than simply scarlet, because he saw it as being overlapping with royalty. But regardless, the words, at least in Greek, scarlet and purple, they do have overlap with, so it's probably in reality was more reddish than anything. Anyway, this is my video and last installment for John chapter 19, verse 2.